Welcome back everybody to racing action here on the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, and the first of two races today for the Disc Lock Civic Cup coming up very shortly. The cars are, as you can see, making their way out onto the grid now, and this ought to be another really good 20-minute race, or 15-minute race I should say actually, for the Civic Cup. They're short, sharp races, these big grid of cars, 20 cars due to take the start, and a very, very close and competitive championship that we've had. Lee Deegan, the pole sitter, has won 4 races this year and arrives here as the championship leader, but on dropped scores he's only 27 points ahead of Daniel Reason, so it is fairly tight at the top, and Daniel Reason has qualified third as well, so they're fairly close together, those two, on the top of the points and towards the sharp end of the grid. Third in the championship, Daniel Hobson, is only a further 4 points back, and then he's 7 points ahead of Alistair Camp, all of whom have qualified within the top 5 for this race. It's a one-make championship then for Honda Civics, but for various shapes and sizes of Honda Civics. The bulk of them are the EP3 car that you can see there, sharing the front row, Deegan, and alongside him Bruce Winfield. But we also have cars, for example, like Daniel Reason in the FN2, the slightly more bulbous-shaped Honda Civic. And in theory, you could go back to some of the even earlier Honda Civics, although there aren't actually any out here this weekend. But they're all very evenly matched, and there is a sort of balanced performance in a way between the cars, but they're naturally pretty even on pace actually, and they always produce really, really close racing here. Lee Deegan, brother of Shane Deegan, who had a stint in Renault Clios. Lee Deegan himself, very, very well-known name in the club racing community here in the UK, and he is your championship leader, car number 48. Alongside him on the front row will be Bruce Winfield, and Bruce Winfield winless so far this year. He's had, I believe, a couple of podiums, 3 podiums I think this season, but a bit of an up and down season, and Bruce Winfield arrives here 6th in points, but some 44 points off the top, so keep an eye to the orange and black cars, try and get some of those points back as the green flag lap gets underway. Third on the grid is the first of the FN2 cars, in fact possibly the only FN2 car that we've got here this weekend, the black number 77 of Daniel Reason. There is your grid coming up at the bottom of the screen. Daniel Reason then, 1 win this year, and he is the man that's 2nd place in the points. Paul Taylor lines up alongside. Paul Taylor, former VW racer, he's 4th on the grid then. And then on row 3, another race winner, Daniel Hobson, who had a victory earlier on this season. He has got Lewis Rose alongside him, looking for his first victory of the season. Then row 4 for Alistair Camp, also a winner, one of 5 different winners that we've had for the first 8 races. And Morgan Bailey alongside. Then it's Aaron Rose and David Buki, who's a bit further down the order than you might expect. Martin Diel and Sam Nicolao are on the 6th row of the grid. Then row 7, Jason Ballantyne. Jason Ballantyne, 5th in the points, won last time out at Croft, and hasn't really had a good qualifying session in slightly damp conditions yesterday, and so he's down in 13th with Andrew Wilmot alongside him. Andrew Wilmot, very rapid racer, and these days one of the men behind one of the top British touring car teams, the Trade Price Cars squad. Michael Winkworth and Max Lewis are on row 8. Row 9, Andy Hart and Paul McHugh, with Damien Harris and Rick Shortle rounding out the 20-car field. So the green flag lap then, a fairly short affair as you'd expect, being this is such a short circuit here at Brands Hatch Indy, just 1.2 miles in length. 15 minutes of racing action to expect. We should see a very, very high octane and high action race. I think we're going to see a really close battle here between Deegan and Winfield. Winfield desperate to try and get that first victory of the season and maybe bring himself into championship contention. We are into the second half of the season now. There are just 6 races still to go, 2 of which will be here today. So after this weekend, we probably will be able to narrow down our championship contenders to maybe 2 or 3. And to be a championship contender, you're going to have to beat this man, Lee Deegan. You can see the big ding in the door there. That's it goes to show you that racing does occasionally get a little close for comfort. But hopefully we'll keep it clean this time. Down to that first corner then. All cars running on identical MRF tyres. And the MRF, one of the series sponsors as well these days of many of the BRSCC championships. So Damien Harris then and Rick Shortle lining up at the back of the grid as we get ready to go racing then for the first time this weekend in the Disc Lock Honda Civic Cup. 15 minutes of racing with Lee Deegan, the blue car, with the orange and black of Bruce Winfield alongside. Who gets the whole shot? It's hard sometimes to start from pole position here. Does that hurt Lee Deegan? Not a bit, but it's the second row cars that seem to get a better start, particularly Paul Taylor from the outside of row number 2, as they're all cleanly away. And yeah, Taylor goes around the outside of a sluggish starting Bruce Winfield, and Winfield already finds himself falling down the order. Through paddock then for the first time, up the hill, all cleanly through despite the relatively cold temperatures, meaning they've got relatively cold tyres. And it's Daniel Reason and Paul Taylor side by side for second, behind the race leader Lee Deegan, who leads them out of Druids. It's Reason that gets second, then Taylor should hang on to third there. The dark coloured car on the inside, yep, fends off the orange machine of Bruce Winfield, who started second, and he's down to fourth place already. Out of Graham Hill Bend though, he's trying to fight back up the inside of Paul Taylor. He's got the inside line into Surtees, and I think he's going to be able to move back through into third. Yes, he has. Bruce Winfield should still be in third position. That's Daniel Reason then in second, getting sideways. That's that cold rear tyre situation I was talking about. It takes a while for those rear tyres to get fully up to speed in these short wheelbase front wheel drive cars, and they're very loose at the rear on cold tyres. Side-by-side action going on behind, but Lee Deegan leads the way then. Reason second, third place Winfield, fourth is Taylor, fifth position across the line Daniel Hobson. So Hobson's held his position, with Jason Ballantyne from 13th on the grid is 6th already. Jason Ballantyne's gained 7 places on the opening lap. That is the start of a driver who feels that he still should be a championship contender, and he's going the right way about making sure that that is the case. So Ballantyne there, the orange 22 car, we just caught a glimpse of, into 6th place overall already. It's a brilliant start, just ahead of Lewis Rose there, who we're watching, with behind him number 26 Morgan Bailey, as they scream their way down the Cooper Straight. These high revving 2-litre engines, the VTEC engines, always do create a great soundtrack for us to enjoy here trackside. Clearways then, back along the Cooper Straight, side by side up the road, and that looked like it was Ballantyne, was it? Not Ballantyne, Winfield, on the inside of Daniel Reason, I think, in second place. Lee Deegan, second fastest lap, as he pulls away at the head of the field. But what was going on for second position? There was Ballantyne going through, but where was Winfield? Yeah, Winfield's ahead of Reason. I just caught a glimpse of that in the distance. So there you can see the orange car into second place with its headlights ablaze. We know he's got the pace this weekend, just didn't get the best of starts. There's a car in the gravel further back, which might have been Damien Harris, possibly. I think it was the red and white car that started from the back of the grid. Is that number 140? Hard to tell, but yes, I think it probably was. So he drops to the tail end of the field after a decent start, actually. 45 is Alistair Camp there, so he had dropped down into 11th place. I think he was losing more ground there through Graham Hill Bend. As Paul Taylor in 4th place now has Daniel Hobson and the remarkable Jason Ballantyne right on his tail. So Ballantyne with a really strong start. Now, though, he's finding some of the quicker drivers are not going to be quite as easy to overtake. Across the line goes Lee Deegan. There is his gap. It's already 2.1 seconds between Deegan, the race leader, and Winfield now back into second position. Ballantyne already on the hunt, though, trying to get up the inside. He's over the curb. He's a bit sideways through Paddock Hill Bend. Catches the drift nicely, but that just cost him a bit of momentum up the hill. Ooh, Daniel Reason there trying to fight back up the inside of Winfield. Lee Deegan, the only man to have won more than one race this year, and he's won 4 races this year and looks to be about to make that 5 from 9. Not a bad hit rate, that. He's pulling away now out at the head of the field. Everybody else streaming through behind. What a sight they make as well, as they hop over that curb and race down the back straight. And great there, Aaron Rose has lost some ground, so he was starting 9th. He's dropped well outside the top 10 already. It's out of Clearways then, onto the pit straight once more, and this is really all about this fight for second, because Bruce Winfield, having got into second ahead of Daniel Reason, cannot live with this very impressive pace being shown by Lee Deegan, who's now done another fastest lap, a 54.530, which is only about 4 tenths off what pole position was yesterday in a damp but drying session, so it did get dry by the end. And Deegan is just a country mile ahead at the moment of this 5-way fight for second position, which sees Winfield, Reason, Taylor, Hobson and Ballantyne together. So Ballantyne, having seemingly cruised through the field on the opening lap, is now become a bit stuck really in 6th position. 5th in the points as well, so I suppose that's kind of where you'd expect to see him running, but the pace that he showed in the early stages there, the orange machine of Ballantyne, you would expect to see him continue to make that progress, but he's struggling for now to get past Daniel Hobson, who's a bit sideways in front of him though, so he'll be a bit slower off the corner. Across the line, down to Paddock Hill Bend again. 2.8 seconds the lead gap. It's still going out, despite the fact that Lee Deegan did not set a fastest lap that time around for the first time all race. Oh, Ballantyne sideways there through Paddock Hill Bend. Did he catch it? Yes, he did. Nicely saved, though. That was a big old moment, and then he goes up the inside there at the very last minute of Dan Hobson. Did that work? No, he backed out of it sensibly. I think they may have just traded a bit of paint, but that was a very, very late lunge. So Ballantyne may be stuck in 6th place, but it's not for the want of trying. He is doing everything he can here to gain extra positions. It's orange and black cars topping and tailing this little group now. Big group really of 5 cars. Clearways. Winfield not able to get away here from Daniel Reason. Daniel Reason is in the tow, closing in now as they go towards Paddock Hill Bend. Is he going to be able to dive to the inside? Goes to the outside on the way in, looking again for that tighter and faster line off the corner that gives you the momentum up the hill to Druids, but no, I don't think he was able to do that. Into the gravel though, I can see it's gone Dan Hobson. Dan Hobson, I can see that out of the window, has gone off at Paddock. There's the cloud of dust, and there is Daniel Hobson. So eventually Ballantyne does go through. I don't think there was contact between them, although I couldn't see them going into the corner, but I don't think Ballantyne was really close enough, and so Hobson rejoins now somewhere near David Buki, which means he's down in about 10th place. Buki was running 10th at the line, and they're still side by side coming out of Graham Hill Bend, with Buki, I think, going ahead. There they are, look, Buki, the white and blue car on the outside line. About to go into 9th spot, potentially. Goes right around the outside at Surtees, comes on the inside for Clearways McLaren. Nicely done. So, drama then for Daniel Hobson, and he was 3rd in the championship, remember. He's trying to fight back now at the inside of Buki as they come across the start-finish line. And he is going to have the inside line again into Paddock, but with dirt possibly still on his tyres, he might be a little circumspect into the corner. Well, he's not at all. Look, he carries lots of speed in. Oh, sideways there. That's the 45 car of Ali Camp getting very out of shape. And Alice Camp, better known really for racing Ford Fiestas, but very, very highly tuned Ford Fiestas at that, but making the switch over to Civics this year. Thoroughly enjoying himself, even if the results haven't been particularly good this weekend, but he is 4th in the championship, Alistair, and he has won a race this year. Dropped down the order slightly in this one there, the 45 car, 2nd from last in that little group, and just ahead of Martin Diel in the number 4 car. Ahead of the field, Deegan now with a 3.5 second margin, by the way, as we hit halfway through this first of 2 races for the Disc Lock Civic Cup. And Winfield still with Daniel Reason and Paul Taylor right with him. Then a gap back to Ballantyne, who's 5th. Ballantyne is not really any quicker than those cars in front of him, so I think he may have found his gap in the line now in 5th position. That might be where he stays. Then it's Lewis Rose, then it's number 26, Morgan Bailey, and then this queue of cars being led by Daniel Hobson. And Camp there trying to just sneak around the outside of Sam Nicolao, but couldn't quite carry the momentum around. Oh, there's a car off at Paddock I can see out of the window, which I fear might be Damien Harris again. He's been off on the outside of Paddock, and now I think he's just headbutted the barriers coming off the corner on the right hand side of the road. So a few drivers slipping up out there, but the racing has been very intense right away from the word go, with the exception really of Lee Deegan. One car being warned for track limits, his car 555, Andy Wilmot, oh dear. Andy out in the Civics for I think the first time this year. I don't think we've seen Andrew Wilmot out thus far in 2019. No, we haven't. So Andrew still learning the ropes maybe in these cars, but a handy little driver is Andrew Wilmot. But getting pinged for track limits, which is usually either at Paddock Hill Bend or the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend, where it's very easy to just drift a bit wide over the curb and the grass. This is the fight for 2nd place then. Bruce Winfield, Daniel Reason and Paul Taylor still nose to tail, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. But this is the issue the drivers have sometimes in one-make racing, because your cars are all, in theory, identical in performance. It's not that easy sometimes to find a way past somebody who is also capable of driving at your speed. So if the drivers are even and the cars are even, you sometimes get a bit of a stalemate situation. But Daniel Reason applying the pressure, he's asking all the right questions of Bruce Winfield, but so far Winfield has all of the right answers. They are now 5 seconds behind the race leader, these three, but they are still enjoying their little battle, most definitely. Out of Graham Hill, down the Cooper Straight they go. 56 goes through, that is Morgan Bailey. And it's Hobson still ahead of Buki behind them. Second place scrap continues to intensify now. Daniel Reason, with every lap that goes by, will be getting more and more frustrated that he can't find a way past Ballantyne. Hobson, with Hobson struggling here, of course, Daniel Reason can at least extend his second place points advantage. Whilst meanwhile, there's another place lost, I'm afraid, for Alistair Campy, or it will be soon, because up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend goes Martin DL. And yeah, he's gone through, so nice move there from DL, late on the brakes, but as is often the case, that move started really with a good exit from Clearways. Damien Harris, by the way, I can see again out of the window, has just pulled into the paddock, so he's out of the race sadly. His day, or his race done. As I say, he's just been off for a second time at Paddock Hill Bend, so it's possible that car's got a bit of damage to it now. Still, these battles raging though, as if it's the first lap of the race. Great stuff here from the Disc Civic Cup, as ever. Action aplenty. Clearways. Oh, and another car off, this time at Graham Hill Bend. Who was that's just had a moment? Andy Hart, I think, possibly, if that was 133. Oh, Andy Wilmot, by the way, being given a 5-second time penalty now, unfortunately. So Andy Wilmot, who is running 16th. Oh, and in fact has just pitted anyway, so he's rather fed up with the whole situation. He's decided to call it a day, so he's out of the race anyway. Now we've had a change, I can see out of the window again here, for second place. Daniel Reason and Paul Taylor have both got themselves ahead, I think, yes, of Bruce Winfield. And they've done it by the end of the previous laps. Winfield demoted 2 places. And that stout defence that he was putting up has come to an end now, unfortunately. So that means Reason will score second place point, which is good news for the man that's second in the points, but he's still behind Lee Deegan, now by, well, even bigger margin. Yeah, 5.7 now the gap. Oh, and another car off and beached, I'm afraid, into the gravel at Clearways. Who's that? It's someone from just outside the top 10, I think, that's gone off. And I'm not sure which one that is. Let's see who doesn't come through this time. It's the 133 car, I think, of Andy Hart. Oh, yeah, there we go. It is Andy Hart that's into the gravel. Didn't see whether he was pushed or whether he jumped, but he's out of the race, that's for sure. Now, they might be able to cover that under double wave yellows. There is a live snatching operation at that part of the circuit, so car goes off, they can send the live snatch vehicle out and cover it under double waved yellows, but that means no overtaking into the final sector of the lap, basically. So looks as though that is what they're going to do. No sign of a safety car, thankfully. So racing can continue, albeit with no overtaking at this corner at Clearways, which is a good overtaking opportunity, but no one's going to be able to use it for the remainder of this race now. So Lee Deegan, there he is, your race leader, 5.1 seconds clear now. Daniel Reason, who, as you can see, is into second position now. Third for Paul Taylor. Winfield down to fourth, the first of the 2 orange and black cars. And then Jason Ballantyne. So can Ballantyne get another position here, I wonder, from 13th place on the grid? That would be quite something. There's a partially reversed grid as well then for race 2. So even if he doesn't manage to gain too many more places, he should still be somewhere towards the pointy end for race 2. Daniel Reason then into second place, the man who is second in the championship, so he really does need these points. Paul Taylor, not a series regular. In fact, I think this is his first appearance of 2019 in the Civic Cup. So he's not particularly worrying about points, but look at this. Yeah, Ballantyne is all over Winfield now. Bruce Winfield, who is 1 position behind him in the championship, but only 2 points behind him. Oh, look at that, Ballantyne sideways into paddock, nicely held. That was, he's been sideways a few times in this race, but that was probably the most sideways he's been. He goes to the inside anyway at Druids at the very next corner. But yes, these two are only separated by 2 points in Ballantyne's favour. So actually, if things finish as they are now, Winfield will move into 5th place in the championship, or they may be tied on points, but even so, very close between these two. This should be a good battle now between the 4th and 5th place cars until the checkered flag, which will be at the end of the next lap, because with only 25 seconds left on the clock, this will be the final lap that they're about to start. Deegan coming across the start finish line as we speak. In fact, is receiving the final lap board. And his lead margin now is 4 seconds. It's coming down quite rapidly, but I think he's just managing the gap, really. Reason and Taylor seem fairly static in second and third, but fourth place is still up for grabs. And Ballantyne this time goes to the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. I don't think there was any contact, but he's just about been able to prise the door open. He's got the inside line for Druids again, and we know he's good on the brakes. He should be able to move through. There's very little that Winfield can do there. And unfortunately, Bruce Winfield's been a yo-yo race for him here. He started second, dropped down the order at the start, picked his way back through in the early stages, and then started to drop down again in the second half of the race. And sadly, he drops now down to the back of the top five. But what a drive this has been from Jason Ballantyne. From 13th on the grid, he is now fourth with half a lap to go. He's not going to have enough time to catch these two. But this has been a really good race from him. Through clearways comes the second place battle, but Lee Deegan, look, is already heading for the checkered flag, and he is going to take his fifth race victory of the season. A brilliant, dominant performance there from Lee Deegan in Civic Cup terms, a victory margin of 3.3 seconds, but it could have been a lot more than that had he not backed off by about a second a lap towards the end. Daniel Reason comes home second, Paul Taylor is 4 tenths behind him in third, and Jason Ballantyne from 13th on the grid is fourth by the flag. Bruce Winfield is fifth, Lewis Rose sixth, then seventh Marcus Bailey, eighth Daniel Hobson, ninth David Buki, and 10th place for Sam Nicolao. And that is how your top 10 then look after a frenetic race for the Disclock Civic Cup. What a race that was though for Lee Deegan, and he extends his points margin now then. Get a bonus point for fastest lap, which he got as well, so he will take the maximum 26 points from that race, having started from pole as well. So, yeah, nothing that they can do about that. He will extend his margin, not by a huge amount though, because Daniel Reason in second will still score 22 points, so it's a 4-point gain essentially. So what was a 22-point deficit now becomes a 26-point deficit for Daniel Reason after he finishes second behind Lee Deegan, the race winner. Reason second, Taylor third, Ballantyne fourth and 13th, then Bruce Winfield fifth. Lewis Rose is sixth, then Morgan Bailey. Daniel Hobson down in eighth. He'll be disappointed after that gravelly run through paddock. David Buki ninth, and Sam Nicolao rounding out the top 10. Martin Diallo is 11th, Max Lewis 12th, Aaron Rose 13th, and Ali Camp in 14th. Michael Winkworth was 15th, ahead of Paul McHugh and Rick Shortle. Then Andy Hart was a retirement in the end, so too Andy Wilmot into the pit lane, and Damien Harris after 2 moments at Paddock Hill Bend, the second of which saw him headbutt the barriers on the inside of the track. He called it a day and pulled into the paddock about halfway through. So the Disclock Civic Cup race over for now. They'll be back out again later on today, just after our second TCR and TCT race at about 5:45, but we are ahead of time here at Brands Hatch. We were due to get this race underway at 1 o'clock, and it's just finished at 5 to 1, so we are about 20 minutes or so ahead of time for the time being, which is good news. But that means we will get TCR racing underway potentially a little ahead of time as well. But there was an awful lot to cram through. Although I'm actually just hearing in my ears now that we might actually, I think we are going to start our TCR race on time. So we're going to get an extra bit of lunch, which is good news. So the TCR and TCT race at 1:35 start time. But we will be live from 1:35 pit lane opens. And the race starts at 1:55, but we'll be live from about 1:35 down on the grid, myself and Bryn, catching up with a few of the drivers and seeing what their thoughts are ahead of the penultimate race meeting actually of the season. We have 2 races here at Brands Hatch, 2 at Donington Park, and that's it. 4 races to go, and it's very close at the top. It was close for second place in the Civic Cup, but Lee Deegan was a dominant race winner, his 5th victory of the season, and he's down in the pit lane with Bryn.
While everyone was fighting it out there, one man was able to just get their head down and carry on going, and that man was you, Lee. Well done.
Thank you very much.
From the outset, it seemed like your race, really. All the others are battling around, and you just got to keep your head down and just focus on what's ahead.
Yeah, I think the gap opened more due to them fighting with each other rather than me getting faster and faster. I just managed to maintain a consistent pace, just keep my head and keep pushing on. I was very wary of the car because we had a really big accident on Friday. So big thank you to the team who have put the car back together. It's had a whole new front end on it. And yeah, I mean, they turned a disaster around into cracking weekend so far. So I've got all the hard work to do from P10 in the next race.
Yeah, so that's the next tricky bit. I mean, you claimed top step on the podium, but you've now got a much more difficult prospect ahead of you.
That's it. It's exciting with Civic Cup because it's reverse grid. The top 10 is reversed, and it makes the second race quite a crazy one. So there's not actually too many places to pass around here. So I've got my work cut out for me, and I'll see what I can do.
Looking at the cars, when we see, particularly going down to paddock as well, you do get a lot of back end out on these cars because there's no downforce on the back, I suppose. They're really a bit wafty, aren't they?
They are, yeah, and they're quite a heavy car as well. They're 1200 kg with the driver. So when that weight starts moving around, it really can drag the rear away from you and catch you napping. So,
which is particularly hard on a front-wheel drive car to be able to regain it really and get the composure back.
Yeah, you just have to keep your foot in and hope for the best, really. So it's all about car control, and with all the cars so evenly matched, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Well done. Nice win there for you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good stuff for our race winner. Let's get Dan now. Dan had a pretty tough race there. A lot of the drivers and a lot of the cars on position, a lot of fighting happening throughout the pack, and you had a bit of a battle on your hands as well.
Yeah, I actually sort of made my own mistake and put it on myself, really. Out the last corner, I was heading towards the gravel, had to get out the throttle. Bruce nicked past, and then from then on I was sort of quicker on his bumper. Couldn't find the right place to pass. And then when we came to paddock, I made a lunge, and Bruce moved under braking. We couldn't afford but touch, really. So I'm just glad to get through and stay on Lee's tail, because obviously winning the race, you need to stay pretty close.
Bruce was really putting it to you the whole time. You and Bruce fighting a lot until the end, and Bruce did go back quite a few places. So for yourself, was it a case of just trying to focus on what you could do and try and gain a top spot over there, but it wasn't something you could eventually get on?
I don't know if the pace was there. It probably was, but that slight mistake at the start just held us up, really. I think if we got clear, we might have given Lee a run for his money. He made a nice break at the start, and then obviously my mistake followed that. I think we've got the pace to be there.
So what does this mean for you looking at race 2 then? You start ahead of him, obviously, but you start a further back.
Yeah, obviously there's only one position between us there in the first race. It's made and lost in the second, as it is in every round, really. So that's where it's going to be important.
Okay, well, keep an eye on that. Well done.
Thank you.
There you go, second place. Let's now speak to third place man. Started fourth, so gained a place on track. You must be pretty happy with your morning's work.
Very happy. First podium ever in the Civic Cup. So yeah, very pleased. Managed to ride the trouble out behind Bruce and Daniel. They obviously cut that little coming together, so managed to sneak through Bruce, past Bruce, held on for third. So yeah, really pleased.
Now, I was looking at the cars out on track. I mentioned it already that the tails on these cars do seem to come out a fair bit on some of the turns, particularly down into paddock, and that is a nasty place to lose the back end of a car, particularly a front-wheel drive car.
It is, yeah. I mean, today seems particularly bad, to be fair. It seems to be quite loose on the back, and I think a lot of lads are suffering with the same problem. But it sometimes helps you carry some more speed around the corner, helps it turn. So, but you just got to find that fine line, and not cross it and end up in the gravel.
Also looks really good on camera.
Yeah.
Well done for you. Happy.
Very happy. Happy the moon.
Good stuff.
Just like to thank everybody that helps me out. So yeah, it's been a good weekend so far.
Well, go and get your trophy. Well done there. And an honourable mention, I think, to Jason Valentine there, who started 13th up to 4th. What a mighty run that was from him. We have got a little bit of a break here. I reckon about half an hour before we are back, something like that, and we're going to do the build-up to TCR UK. Will Lewis Kent be the one to stop here? He starts way back on the grid for TCR UK, but he's leading the championship. We're going to see what happens in around about 30 minutes time here live from Brands Hatch. We'll see you there.